today I've got my top 10 best movies of 2019 list. Now I had posted my worst films of 2019 list, and I was really happy that some of you guys came along to the stream. You guys can tell me what your best films of 2019 were, and trust me, I have a lot of movies that I really enjoyed in 2019, and some of them I actually didn't get a chance to review them yet, but I will very soon. So I am very excited to talk to you guys about them. So I am going to start off with my honorable mentions. Now these are ones that, you know, if there was any sort of room on my list, I mean, I had to bump them here, but they were still pretty good nonetheless. For all of the movies that I listed in my best films of 2019, I would say that each one I was really impacted by them, so that is why they are on this list. So in no particular order, I'm going to start off with Hustlers. Now this is a movie that I really enjoyed. I ended up seeing it twice because you know, I really found the story to just be very interesting because it's based off a true story. I mean, J-Lo was absolutely incredible returning to the big screen with this type of role. I just found the directing to be incredible because it was also a female directed movie to leading an all female cast of just, you know, pretty incredible characters. So I really enjoyed watching it. Us, which was one of the most interesting horror movies that came out in 2019. It was the second movie that Jordan Peele directed after Get Out, and I couldn't believe what could possibly top Get Out as this really insane plot. But I thought Lupita Nyong'o was amazing in that movie. It was downright creepy and suspenseful, and you know, obviously I gotta give horror some love, so I really enjoyed watching that movie. Toy Story 4, you know, I was a fan of all of the previous Toy Story movies and thinking, how could they possibly top Toy Story 3 with that ending? And this one definitely went out on a high note, and I definitely got emotional watching it because it's Toy Story, bringing back all these familiar characters that we know and love, so I definitely loved it even more this time around. John Wick Chapter 3, I am also glad to say that I finally own the Blu-ray, and I won it in a contest, so I can enjoy it for what it is because Keanu Reeves was back for a third time as John Wick, and this movie was even bigger and better than I ever expected. I mean, I was literally sitting front row watching this, and I was just amazed by everything that I saw. So I can't even wait to see John Wick Chapter 4 when that movie comes out. Shazam, and this was by David F. Sandberg. I mean, Zachary Levi was pretty incredible as this character who went in this sort of big mode, like the movie Big, starring Tom Hanks, and, you know, became this superhero that was originally known as Captain Marvel, but we all know who's now playing Captain Marvel in the cinematic world. But I really enjoyed watching this movie because it mixed this childish humor with some horror, and it's set during Christmas time, but it came out in April, so I think that was just pretty crazy in itself. But this movie was just pretty epic and awesome, and a fun time to watch. My last honorable mention has to go to a movie that I had seen the previous two movies in this trilogy, and it's shocking to say that it did end up becoming a trilogy, all thanks to director M. Night Shyamalan with Glass. Now, a lot of people might be disappointed with how this movie ended, and yeah, maybe I was a little bit too, but I still enjoyed watching it because I got to see the actors Bruce Willis and Samuel Jackson from Unbreakable come up against James McAvoy from Split to all come together in this one movie where it is just this crazy yet modern superhero type of movie that, you know, it's kind of unexpected in a way, but it was still a pretty decent movie, and I really enjoyed myself watching it. I have seen it I don't know how many times since it came out, but it just makes me excited to see it when I do. And now for my top 10 list, I'm going to start off with my number 10 best movie of 2019, and it is for Uncut Gems. Now, this is a movie that I still have yet to review, but I'm going to tell you right now that I really enjoyed myself watching this movie. One, because I was completely impressed with Adam Sandler's performance, and I think it is one of his best roles in years. I mean, I don't even remember what was the last movie I enjoyed seeing him in that was, you know, taking this more dramatic approach. I liked the direction by the Safdie brothers, and I thought it was a very interesting story, and I'm pretty sure somebody gave a shout out to this movie at the Golden Globes, and so I would definitely love to see, come Oscar season, some recognition for this movie, because I think it is a very underrated movie to come out in 2019. My number 9 best film of 2019, it is For a Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. Now, I definitely had to put this movie on my list because I had seen it for a second time, and of course, I wasn't watching it alone, and the people I was watching it with were bawling their eyes out like I had previously done when I saw this movie for the first time. This is about Mr. Rogers, and Tom Hanks, who plays him, did such an incredible job. I love the direction by Mariel Heller, another female director that I think deserves some recognition for this movie, based on the life of Fred Rogers, who gets interviewed for a magazine, and you get to, you know, basically relive your childhood watching this movie, especially if you grew up watching Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, and there's just so many references and so many things that remind you about being good, and there's just so many good messages about this movie, and I really felt like I connected with this movie a lot. For my number 8 best film of 2019, it is for Disney's live-action Aladdin. Now, Guy Ritchie, I felt like, did a pretty decent job with this movie that I sort of was on the fence about. I mean, of course I was excited to see it, but I was also kind of skeptical because, you know, the trailers made Will Smith's genie not look exactly what you would expect, but you know, it was met with a lot of harsh criticism and some cringe-worthy scenes, but this movie ended up being one of my favorite Disney live-action movies of all time, so I really enjoyed it, and of course I loved the original Aladdin, and I think this did a really good job at putting a more, a fresher take on the movie, the original Aladdin animated version. For my number 7 best film of 2019, it is for Dr. Sleep. Now, this is the Shining sequel that, you know, gets a chance to share the silver screen, and Mike Flanagan did an excellent job directing. Of course, he is one of the best horror directors working in Hollywood today, so I was really glad to see him behind the camera with this movie, starring Ewan McGregor, who plays an adult Danny Torrance, who goes back to the Overlook and experiences all of the horrors that that place brought, and including some other unsavory characters, including Rose the Hat, played by Rebecca Ferguson. And I would probably say I've seen it a couple times now, and I am still scared to watch it at night. For my number 6 best film of 2019, it is for Ford versus Ferrari. Now, when I saw this movie, I was just pumped up and excited. James Mangold directing this, and especially seeing one of my favorite actors of all time, Christian Bale, in a movie where it's about race car driving, and seeing it on the big screen was just absolutely incredible, and just feeling like you're actually in on this action. I absolutely loved the story, because it is based off of a true story set in the 1960s about the Le Mans race. I loved hearing things that I didn't actually know about, so I liked going in this movie not really knowing a lot about the actual story, but it was still a pretty awesome and intense and fun and funny movie. For my number 5 best film of 2019, it is for Greta Gerwig's Little Women. Now, the last Little Women movie that I saw came out in '94, and this is another movie that I have yet to review, but I really enjoyed it. I probably cried like maybe 2 or 3 times throughout the movie, because I was just so impressed with the acting. I mean, it's got an ensemble cast of Saoirse Ronan, Florence Pugh, Laura Dern, Meryl Streep, and Timothy Chalamet, Emma Watson, and I just couldn't believe, how authentic it looked. I mean, the costumes and the set design, everything about it was literally what I expected it to be, and it was just so beautiful and just very well done. For my number 4 best films of 2019, it is for a movie that got a lot of buzz in the comic book movie community, and you might guess what it is, and it is Avengers Endgame. Now, I happened to see this on opening night, and I was probably really exhausted at the time because it was so super late, and on top of it, it's a 3-hour-long movie, but I guess who really cares, because there was just so much going on in this movie. It is literally to end an era of 10 years of building up the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and it all came down to the events of this movie. I laughed, I cried, I probably wanted to jump for joy and really cheer on some of my favorite Marvel characters. Some people might also consider this one of the best movies of all time. I mean, it is the highest grossing movie of all time, almost hitting $3 billion, beating out the likes of Titanic and Avatar, which is now a Disney property, thanks to Fox. This movie really blew all of my expectations. I mean, the final act of the movie is probably one of the best things I've seen since Lord of the Rings: The Return of the King. So congratulations, Russo brothers. Can't wait to see where you guys will go from here. So my number 3 best films of 2019, it is for Knives Out. Now, I was kind of skeptical about this movie at first, because Rian Johnson, who I've loved some of his previous work, like Brick and Looper, and maybe not Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi, but when I ended up seeing this movie, I fell in love with it right away, not only because of the ensemble cast of particularly well-known actors, and some of whom are actually some of the best in the business, and even some of the most hilarious and unexpectedly so, because it's this whodunit comedy, and I was literally guessing up to the very end what exactly was all going to go down in this movie, and it was just very unique. It was well written. The camera work alone made me enjoy this movie, and I loved it. For my number 2 best films of 2019, it is for The Lighthouse. Now, I know that this movie, I feel like, didn't get as much love during the awards circuit because maybe not too many people have actually seen it, and I hope people haven't forgotten about it, because this movie, directed by Robert Eggers, who previously did one of my favorite horror movies of all time, which I just got on Blu-ray, The Witch, came to direct Robert Pattinson and Willem Dafoe in this movie that's shot all in black and white, and it's these two guys who are at this lighthouse and experiencing some of the, craziest things you would expect if you were the only two people alone at a lighthouse. I, found it to be haunting, yet kind of, unique and beautiful at the same time. And I would really highly recommend people check this out if you haven't seen it. For my number 1 best film of 2019, and some of you probably know what it is, maybe some of you don't, but drum roll please, it is for Joker. I absolutely loved this movie, and I think Joaquin Phoenix just blew me away with his performance, especially playing, such a hard character. I mean, who can possibly top Heath Ledger, who has been my all-time favorite interpretation of the Joker? And for him to be able to pull off this role, I was haunted by it. I, really felt for his character because it's a completely different take, but it was one that I feel like worked for him. And the movie itself, directed by Todd Phillips, really made this movie something special, and down to the script, the cinematography, and even the score, which won a Golden Globe, as well as Joaquin Phoenix winning for Best Actor. So, road to the Oscars, I'm crossing my fingers right now. I just loved this movie, and it really did make me want to put a smile on my face. So, there you have it with my best films of 2019 list. And like I said, let me know what your guys' top 10 best films of the year are. I will be posting my most and least anticipated films of 2020 videos very soon, so be on the lookout for that. And as always, you guys can subscribe to my channel. I've got more movie reviews, movie updates, come back every week for a Chill Thursday video. You guys can also like me on Facebook and follow me on Twitter, and I will see you guys later.